What it's like to be recruited into the Black Legion begins with a single moment of terrible clarity. The voice of Abaddon the Despoiler crawls through your mind like ice spreading through your veins. I remember that voice calling across the Eye of Terror, demanding we abandon our past and embrace his vision. For 9,000 years, I served as a serf to the Luna Wolves, watching their glory fade into bitter shadow. Now my flesh burns as the warp remakes it. My memories dissolve like ash in water, and my soul screams as weakness is carved away. They say the Black Legion offers freedom from the shadow of fallen Primarchs. But what kind of freedom requires you to surrender everything that was ever human? The marks on my flesh are not scars. They are signatures. I remember the day my master died, not the true day 10,000 years past when the War Master fell upon Terra. That death belongs to history. I speak of the second death, the one I witnessed with my own eyes, the day Horus Lupercal truly vanished from the galaxy. They say a serf should never look directly upon his master, that the glory of the Astartes is not for mortal eyes to behold in full. Yet I served the Legion since before the fall, since before we fled into the screaming void men call the Eye of Terror. I knew every ritual, every observance. I had polished the same armor for 9 millennia, watching the gold of the Luna Wolves fade to a sickly pallor as our purpose rotted within us. My name was Garen Vale, though names have little meaning now. I was born on Terra in the shadows of the Unity Palace, when the Imperium still contained hope. I was selected for service at the age of 6, my hands deemed perfect for the delicate work of maintaining power armor, thin fingers, steady pulse. The Legion apothecaries enhanced me with minor augmentations, enough to extend my life, but not enough to elevate me beyond useful servitude. A partial immortality, crueler than true death. For 9,000 years I served, watching younger serfs age and die while I endured. My master was Dantas Saris, once a captain in the Luna Wolves, later a warlord who clung to the past with obsessive fervor. He was not the only one. After the War Master fell, the Legion shattered into warbands. Some embraced the path of chaos immediately, raging across the stars in newfound freedom. Others, like my master, remained paralyzed by loss. They built shrines to Horus, collected relics of the old Legion, and waited for the impossible return of their fallen father. Time means nothing in the Eye. Years pass like days or centuries, depending on the warp's whim. Our warband dwelled within the remains of a grand vessel, the Vindication. Once a proud battleship of the Great Crusade, now half merged with the landscape of a demon world. The vessel had crashed, or perhaps grown roots, its metal hull fused with crystalline earth. From the command bridge, my master would stare out over the twisted horizon, waiting for a sign. Unease grew among the serfs. Whispers spread that our master had lost his purpose. Even the Astartes spoke less with each passing year, their oaths of vengeance against the Emperor fading into hollow ritual. We were dying, not in body, but in spirit. Then came the day of the summons. We felt it before we heard it, a pressure against the skin, as though the air itself had grown too heavy to bear. The demon world trembled, crystalline formations shattering across the landscape. I was polishing my master's armor in the preparation chamber when the first waves hit, a psychic pulse so powerful it knocked serfs from their feet and caused even the Astartes to stumble. Then came the voice, unspoken, unheard, yet present in the mind of every living being in the warband. Sons of Horus, Luna Wolves, followers of the fallen War Master, hear me. The voice was deep, powerful, familiar, yet changed. It carried an authority that allowed no disobedience. My hands froze on the armor plate I had been polishing. My body turned cold despite the demon world's heat. I am Ezekiel Abaddon, first captain of our legion. The War Master is gone. The dream of the Great Crusade is ashes. The time for mourning is over. The psychic broadcast continued, echoing through our souls more than our ears. I watched as my master, the proud Dantus, fell to his knees in the center of the chamber. His face, usually stern and composed, twisted with emotions I had never seen in him. Rage, grief, and something worse. Fear. The Legion, as you knew it, is dead. The 16th Legion died with Horus, but I offer you rebirth. Cast off the pale shadow of the past. Burn away your weakness and doubt. Join me, and we shall forge a new legion, a black legion, not bound by the failures of fathers or the chains of legacy. We shall be free as no others in this galaxy. Free to claim the vengeance that was promised. Free to burn the Imperium to cinders. The voice paused, and in that silence, I felt reality itself shift, as though the galaxy had made a choice. This is my only offer. There will not be another. Come to the vengeful spirit. Kneel before me and rise reborn, or remain in your shrines to a dead demigod, and be forgotten by history. Then came the coordinates, burning themselves into the mind of every navigator and warpsmith in the warband. The location of Abaddon's flagship, the vengeful spirit, heart of the old legion's power. My master stood slowly, armor creaking with movement. Without a word, he turned and strode from the chamber. The Astartes followed, leaving us serfs alone with the echo of Abaddon's voice still reverberating in our minds. What happened next unfolded with a speed that defied our millennia of stagnation. Within hours, the entire warband was mobilizing. Drop pods and gunships were prepared. Serfs scurried to gather relics and equipment. I followed my duty, readying my master's war gear as I had countless times before, but something was different. His armor, once maintained in the pale green and white of the Luna Wolves, was being stripped. Bare ceramite remained where proud colors once gleamed. "You will accompany me, Garen," my master said, speaking directly to me for the first time in centuries. His voice was hollow, as though something essential had been carved from him. "Yes, Lord," I replied, head bowed as protocol demanded. "Do you know why?" I hesitated. A serf does not question. "No, Lord, because you remember," he said. "You remember Terra. You remember the War Master. You remember who we were before the fall. Your memory is a chain, Garen, as is mine." I did not understand his words then. I would later, when the knives came out. The journey through the warp was violent, even by the eye's standards. Our ships, 5 in total, tore through the immaterium like bullets through flesh, leaving trails of screaming souls in our wake. The navigators went mad one by one, their third eyes bleeding as they guided us toward the coordinates. Serfs were sacrificed to maintain our course. Their bodies hung from the command bridge, blood dripping onto parchment maps that changed even as we watched. I remained close to my master during the transit. He had demanded my presence, though he spoke little. He spent hours staring at his stripped armor, running armored fingers across the bare ceramite. Once, I caught him with a pot of green paint, nearly applying it to the shoulder pad before stopping himself. He crushed the pot in his fist, the paint running down his gauntlet like blood. "What if he is right, Garen?" he asked, not turning to look at me. "What if we have been clinging to a corpse, as the loyalists cling to their corpse emperor?" I remained silent. It was not my place to answer. I served him, my master continued. I fought beside the War Master when he was still called Lupercal. I saw his glory. How can I turn from that? How can Abaddon ask this of us? Again, I said nothing, but I remember thinking, Abaddon had not asked. He had commanded, and already my master was obeying. We emerged from the warp into a region of the eye I had never seen before. Here the laws of physics seemed stronger, the madness of the warp held at bay by some greater power. And there, suspended in the void before us, was the vengeful spirit. Even after 10,000 years, I recognized it. The flagship of the War Master himself, the vessel from which Horus had commanded the forces of rebellion. It had changed, as all things in the eye do. Great spines of black metal jutted from its hull. Symbols that hurt the eyes to look upon were carved into its flanks. But it was unmistakably the vengeful spirit, its presence a wound in reality. We were not alone in our pilgrimage. Dozens of ships surrounded the great flagship, vessels bearing the colors of all the shattered remnants of the 16th Legion. The sons of Horus, the Luna Wolves, the true sons, the Horus reborn. 100 warbands, each clinging to their own interpretation of the War Master's legacy, all answering the call of Abaddon. Our ship docked alongside the others. As the airlock cycled, I felt a pressure building in my skull, a presence pushing against my thoughts. The vengeful spirit was alive in ways no vessel should be. It watched us as we entered its body. We were met by warriors in black armor, not the pale green of the sons of Horus, nor the white of the Luna Wolves. Their armor was pure obsidian, trimmed with gold that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their helmets bore no legion markings, no signs of rank or heritage, only the 8-pointed star, the symbol of chaos undivided. The Black Legion, Abaddon's new creation. Dantas Saris, one of the black-armored warriors, spoke, his voice distorted by the vox grill of his helm. The despoiler awaits you in the strategium. Your serfs will be taken to the preparation chambers. My master nodded, his own armor still stripped bare, neither green nor black, a canvas awaiting paint. The serf Garen Vale accompanies me, he said, gesturing to where I stood behind him. The black-armored warrior tilted his head, studying me with eyes I could not see. All serfs are to be processed. It is the despoiler's command. This one has served since Terra, my master insisted. His memory is valuable. All the more reason, the warrior replied. Memories are chains. The despoiler will break them. Before my master could object further, 2 more black-armored warriors stepped forward, taking position on either side of me. I did not resist. A lifetime of obedience does not permit resistance. We shall meet again, Garen, my master said, as they led me away into the black. I was taken through corridors that seemed to shift and breathe, the architecture of the vengeful spirit more organic than mechanical. Other serfs were being herded along the same paths, hundreds of us drawn from the various warbands that had answered Abaddon's call. Some wept openly, fearing what awaited them. Others marched with the stoic acceptance that is the lot of those who serve the Astartes. None tried to flee. There is nowhere to run in the eye of terror. The preparation chambers were vast, cathedral-like spaces that had once been launch bays for assault craft. The high ceilings were lost in shadow, occasionally illuminated by arcs of energy that danced across unseen machinery. In the center stood rows of metal tables, each attended by figures in robes of midnight blue. The dark Mechanicum priests, tech heretics who had turned from the Omnissiah to pursue forbidden knowledge. We were sorted by age and ability. The younger serfs, those with only a few centuries of service, were taken to one side of the chamber. The ancients, like myself, those who had served since the Great Crusade, were led to tables directly beneath the crackling energy arcs. I was stripped of my robes, my aged body exposed to the cold air of the chamber. The marks of my service were visible on my flesh, a network of subtle augmentations inserted by Legion apothecaries 10 millennia ago that had kept me alive long past my natural span. The dark Mechanicum priest examining me clicked his mechadendrites with interest. Pre-heresy Legion augmentation, he said, his voice a blend of human speech and machine code. Rare. Valuable. Will they be removed? I asked, my voice steady despite my fear. The priest made a sound that might have been laughter. Removed? No, serf. Enhanced. Perfected. The despoiler requires servants who will endure the transformation. Transformation? I managed to ask, but he did not answer. Instead, he pressed a mechadendrite to my forehead, and darkness claimed me. The reforging. I awoke to pain, not the sharp, clean pain of a knife or the burn of a brand, but something deeper, cellular, as though each atom of my body was being unmade and reforged. I was strapped to a metal table, my limbs secured with bonds made from a strange alloy that shifted between solid and liquid. Around me, other serfs screamed, those who still could. Some had their mouths sewn shut with cables that pulsed with unnatural light. Others had been partially disassembled, their organs removed and floating in fields of energy beside them, while the priests tinkered with their innards. The priest attending me noticed my consciousness returning. His face was hidden behind a respirator mask adorned with small tentacles that twitched and curled as he spoke. The old implants have accepted the new material, he said, not to me, but to a servo drone that hovered nearby, recording his words. Subject shows remarkable compatibility with warp-infused augmentations, likely due to extended exposure to immaterium energies during service. I tried to speak, but found my jaw locked in place. Metal plates had been grafted to my jawbone, fusing with the existing augmentations. I could feel similar modifications across my body, new implants meshing with the old, creating something neither fully human nor fully machine. You are fortunate, serf, the priest continued, now addressing me directly. Your long service has prepared your flesh for what comes next. Many do not survive the first phase, but you, I think you will endure. You will serve the Black Legion well. He stepped back, revealing the changes to my body. My chest had been opened and reinforced with a cage of dark metal. My organs pulsed with an unnatural light, like the cables silencing the other serfs. Most disturbing were my arms, elongated, tipped with slender metallic fingers designed for the most delicate work upon Astartes' armor. The physical enhancement is only the beginning, the priest said. Now comes the true transformation, the breaking of chains. He reached up and adjusted the machinery above the table. The energy arcs intensified, focusing into a single beam that struck my forehead. Pain gave way to something far worse. My memories began to play before my eyes, not as I recalled them, but twisted, corrupted. I saw myself serving the Luna Wolves during the Great Crusade, but now the glory I had once perceived was replaced with horror. The planets we brought into compliance were not liberated, but enslaved. The warriors I had revered were not heroes, but monsters, butchering innocents for the pleasure of a false emperor. I tried to reject these visions, knowing them to be lies, but the machine burrowed deeper. finding the foundations of my loyalty and corroding them. Wherever my memories contained pride in the Legion, the machine inserted doubt. Wherever there was love for my masters, it planted resentment. Wherever there was faith, it sowed nihilism. I do not know how long this process continued. Time loses all meaning when your very identity is being surgically rewritten. I remember fragments. The priest replacing parts of my brain with cybernetic components that throbbed with warp energy. Serfs dying as their minds rejected the reprogramming. The emptiness growing inside me as my old self was methodically erased. When I was finally released from the table, I was no longer Garen Vale, loyal serf of the Luna Wolves. That identity had been burned away, leaving only a shell of flesh and metal, ready to be filled with new purpose. The ritual of rebirth, the next phase of our transformation, took place deep within the vengeful spirit, where the boundary between material and immaterial was at its thinnest. Here, the Black Legion conducted rituals to bind us not just in body, but in soul. We processed serfs were led in groups of 20 into circular chambers whose walls were inscribed with symbols that shifted when not directly observed. At the center of each stood a Black Legionnaire, one of Abaddon's chosen, clad in armor that seemed to drink the light. The warrior in our chamber removed his helmet, revealing a face that had once been human but was now something more. His skin was pale as death, stretched tight over features too perfect to be natural. His eyes were solid black, reflecting nothing. "I am Vorish Thricebound," he announced, his voice resonating unnaturally within the chamber. "Champion of the Black Legion and servant of the Despoiler. Today, you will renounce your past and embrace the future Abaddon offers. Today, you will be unmade and reforged." He gestured, and from alcoves around the chamber emerged robed figures carrying daggers of black glass. They moved among us, pressing the blades to our foreheads, drawing blood that did not fall. It hovered in the air before our eyes. "Witness your past," Vorish commanded. In the floating droplets of blood, I saw images form, myself as a child on Terra, my selection by the Luna Wolves, the long millennia of service. But these visions were not my memories. They were darker, corrupted further than even the Mechanicum's machines had managed. In these images, I was not a loyal servant, but a slave, broken and bitter, secretly hating my masters even as I served them. "This is the truth your blood reveals," Vorish said. "The chains you have carried, the resentment you buried. Abaddon offers freedom from these lies. Renounce them. Renounce your past." "I renounce it," I heard myself say, though I had not chosen to speak. The words were pulled from me by the ritual, by the changes already made to my mind. The robed figures moved again, slicing our palms and collecting the blood in small black chalices. They mixed our blood with other substances, dark liquids and powders that bubbled and smoked when combined. "Drink," Vorish ordered. "Drink and be reborn." The chalice was pressed to my lips. The liquid burned like acid, searing my throat and spreading fire through my veins. Around me, other serfs collapsed, their bodies convulsing as the mixture took hold. Some simply died, dissolving into bubbling pools of flesh. Others transformed, their humanity slipping away as mutation claimed them. I remained standing, though every nerve screamed. The augmentations performed by the dark Mechanicum responded to the mixture, integrating it rather than rejecting it. My consciousness expanded, connecting to something vast, a network of minds all bound to the same purpose. Through that connection, I sensed Abaddon for the first time. Not directly, but as a gravitational pull on my thoughts, a black sun around which my new existence would orbit. His will became an undercurrent within my own, suggesting rather than commanding, yet irresistible nonetheless. When the ritual ended, only 7 of the 20 serfs in our group remained alive. We were no longer purely human, our forms reshaped by both technology and the warp. Our skin had taken on a pale hue, similar to the color of the legion we once served, but now symbolizing our rebirth instead of our decay. Vorush looked upon us with his black eyes, satisfaction evident in his cruel features. "You have survived the first trials," he said. "Now you must prove your worth. Follow." We were led from the ritual chamber into a vast arena that had once been a launch bay. Hundreds of processed serfs like ourselves stood in disciplined ranks, their bodies altered beyond recognition. Before us rose a raised dais, and upon it stood figures in armor of deepest black, captains of the Black Legion, commanders of Abaddon's new force. Each bore weapons and armor that radiated malevolent power, gifts from the ruinous powers to those who had proven their devotion to the long war. At the center of the dais, elevated above even these mighty warriors, was a throne fashioned from the bones of fallen Astartes. Upon it sat a figure whose presence dominated the vast chamber. His armor was black like the others, but worked with gold that seemed alive, crawling across the ceramite like insects made of light. A great cloak of what appeared to be flayed skin hung from his massive shoulders, but most terrible of all was the weapon he held, a sword longer than a man is tall, its blade flickering with energies that did not belong in the material universe. Drachnion, the end of empires, the demon sword of Abaddon the Despoiler. When he rose from the throne, every being in the chamber fell to their knees, even the Black Legion captains. Only I remained standing, not out of defiance, but from sheer shock. I had seen the War Master himself in the early days, had witnessed the Primarchs in their glory. But Abaddon radiated a different kind of power, not the genetic perfection of the Emperor's creations, but something earned through suffering and determination. He was more than a son of Horus. He was the heir to 10,000 years of hatred. A gauntleted hand gripped my shoulder, forcing me down, Vorash ensuring I showed proper respect. My knees hit the deck with bruising force. "The time of preparation is over." Abaddon's voice rolled across the gathered serfs and warriors. The same voice that had drawn us to the vengeful spirit, but now present in the flesh, rather than transmitted psychically. The War Master is gone. The legion he created failed, but from its ashes we shall rise stronger. We shall forge a brotherhood of the Black, united not by gene seed or Primarch, but by purpose. He descended from the dais, moving through the ranks of kneeling figures. Wherever he passed, warriors and serfs alike bowed lower, none daring to meet his gaze. "Look around you," he commanded. "See your brothers, not Luna wolves, not sons of Horus, Black Legionnaires. Warriors and serfs united in the long war against the false emperor. The past is dead. Loyalty to the War Master is dead. There is only loyalty to the Legion. To me." He stopped before our group, perhaps drawn by my earlier failure to kneel immediately. Up close, his presence was overwhelming. His face, visible beneath a topknot of black hair, bore the features of Horus, twisted by 10 millennia of war and hatred. His eyes blazed with inner fire, windows into a soul consumed by vengeance. "You think you know war," he said, addressing us directly. You think you understand hatred. You remember the War Master and believe that memory gives you strength. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that still carried to every ear. Memory is weakness. Hope is weakness. Faith is weakness. I shall burn these things from you until only rage remains. He straightened, addressing the entire gathering once more. The trials begin now. Prove yourselves worthy of the Black Legion, or die in the attempt. There is no middle path. With those words, the vast bay doors of the launch chamber opened, revealing the twisting unreality of the eye of terror beyond the ship's void shields. Without warning, the artificial gravity cut out. Hundreds of serfs, and even some of the Black Legionnaires, were sucked toward the opening before emergency force fields activated, halting their momentum but leaving them suspended in zero gravity. The weak will be culled, Abaddon declared as chaos erupted around us. The strong will adapt. Vor gripped my arm, his enhanced strength keeping me anchored despite the loss of gravity. Your first trial, he said. Survive. He released me, and I immediately began to drift toward the bay doors, along with dozens of other processed serfs. The force fields were not designed to protect us, but to create a contained arena in which we would fight for survival. In the zero-gravity void, the changes made to our bodies by the dark mechanicum became our only advantage. My elongated, metal-tipped fingers allowed me to grip the floating debris that filled the chamber. The implants in my muscles adjusted my movements automatically, compensating for the absence of gravity. Other serfs struggled. Those without extensive augmentation flailed helplessly. Some collided with debris and were impaled or crushed. Others drifted into the waiting blades of Black Legionnaires who hovered at the edges, culling the weak with cold precision. I pulled myself from handhold to handhold, avoiding the worst of the debris field. My mind, partially merged with the machine systems of the vengeful spirit, could anticipate motion patterns, granting me precious seconds of advantage. I was not alone in this. Other survivors of the mechanicum's processing adapted quickly, moving with eerie coordination. The trial lasted for hours. Gradually, the number of serfs diminished, killed either by the environment or executed by the watching legionnaires. Those who survived began to cooperate instinctively, forming small, temporary groups, not out of loyalty, but cold logic. Cooperation increased survival odds. By the time the bay doors closed and gravity returned, slamming us unceremoniously to the deck, only a third of the original serfs remained. We stood or lay where we had fallen, exhausted and changed. Now, when we looked at one another, we saw not comrades, but competitors, tools, obstacles, rivals. Abaddon, who had watched the entire trial from his elevated position, descended once more to address the survivors. You have passed the first trial, he said, but this is only the beginning. Now comes the true test of devotion. At his signal, Black Legionnaires moved among us, separating us into groups based on criteria I couldn't understand. I found myself among 12 serfs, all heavily augmented, all ancient in service. We were led from the launch bay to a smaller chamber that might once have been a reliquary. The walls were lined with display cases, most empty, a few still containing relics of the Great Crusade. In the center of the chamber stood my former master, Tzeentch Sarus. His armor was no longer bare ceramite, but painted the deep black of the Legion, trimmed in gleaming gold. His helmet was removed, revealing a face I had served for millennia but now barely recognized. The features were the same, but the expression was utterly alien. Where once there had been bitter determination, now there was fanatic purpose. "These are the ones?" he asked the legionnaire who had escorted us. "Yes, Brother Saris, the 12 who remembered." "My master, no, Brother Saris of the Black Legion, studied us with cold eyes that held no recognition." "I too remembered," he said softly. "I remembered glory that never existed, victory that turned to ash, a war master who failed us all." He gestured, and from alcoves around the chamber emerged more legionnaires, each carrying instruments that were part weapon, part surgical device. "Memory is the enemy of rebirth," Sarus continued. "So long as you remember who you were, you cannot become what you must be." The legionnaires moved among us, pressing the instruments to our foreheads. I felt a burning pain as something breached my skull, followed by a spreading, icy numbness. "I shall take your memories," Sarus said. "All that you were, all that you served, and in return, I give you purpose." The device burrowed deeper, my consciousness fragmented. Memories that had survived even the Dark Mechanicum's reprogramming were being torn out, ripped from my mind like teeth from a jaw. My childhood on Terra, my selection by the Luna Wolves. The face of the Emperor glimpsed once during a triumph. The glory of the Great Crusade, the horror of the heresy, the long millennia of purposeless servitude. As these memories vanished, they were replaced, not with falsehoods, but new interpretations. The Emperor as tyrant, Horus as failed savior, Abaddon as the true heir to the Long War, the Black Legion as the only path to vengeance. I fought against it, this rewriting of my identity, but the changes already made to my body and mind had weakened me. Each stage, the augmentation, the rituals, the trial, had stripped away another layer of self. Now, I was ready for final transformation. One by one, my fellow serfs underwent the same fate. Some died, their minds unable to endure. Others emerged changed, their eyes vacant, yet calm with newfound purpose. I hovered somewhere between, neither fully converted nor entirely myself. When it was done, Saris approached me directly, studying my face with clinical detachment. "Do you remember me, Garen Vale?" he asked. I tried to recall, but my memories were fragmented. "You were my master," I said, the words strange on my tongue. "In the old Legion." "And what do you feel toward me now?" I searched my altered emotions. The reverence and fear I had once felt were gone, replaced by something colder. Respect, but not submission. "Nothing, Lord," I answered truthfully. "You are a warrior of the Black Legion, as I shall be a servant of the Black Legion. Our past connection means nothing." Sarus nodded, satisfied. "The extraction was not complete in your case. Fragments remain, but they are no longer chains, merely echoes." He placed a hand on my shoulder, its weight nearly driving me to my knees. "Now you must choose, Garen Vale. Serve the Black Legion with what remains of your soul, or die with your memories intact." The choice was real. I could feel it, a final test, to see if I would surrender willingly. I knelt before Saris, head bowed. "I choose to serve," I said. The words came easily, without resistance. The changes to my mind had done their work well. "Then rise, servant of the Black," Sarus commanded. "Your old life ends today. Your new purpose begins." I rose, feeling a strange lightness. The burden of millennia of memories had been lifted, leaving only space for new purpose to take root. I was still Garen Vale in name, but that name had been emptied of meaning. I was a vessel now, ready to be filled with Abaddon's will. The final phase of our transformation took place in the heart of the vengeful spirit, in chambers that had once belonged to the War Master himself. Here, where the veil between realities was thinnest, we would be bound to the Black Legion not just in mind and body, but in soul. The surviving serfs, now fewer than 100, were brought into a vast circular chamber whose architecture defied the laws of physics. Pillars rose to a ceiling that seemed to contain the void itself, stars and nebulae shifting within its impossible depths. The floor was not metal, but a reflective black liquid that rippled beneath our feet yet held our weight. In the center stood a circle of black legionnaires, each bearing a staff crowned with the 8-pointed star of chaos undivided. They chanted in a language that wounded both ear and mind, their voices weaving shapes in the air, patterns that writhed like living things. Within their circle stood Abaddon the Despoiler. His armor was gone, revealing a body that was a monument to 10,000 years of war. His flesh was a web of scars and warp burns, each marking a battle, a victory, or a pact. The talon of Horus, his infamous lightning claw, was fused to his left arm, the golden metal merging seamlessly with scarred flesh. Before him, plunged into the liquid floor, stood Draknion, his diamond sword, its blade pulsing with a hungry, malevolent light. The final binding, Abaddon's voice thundered across the chamber. The forging of the Black Legion continues. Who shall be bound to our purpose? Who shall serve the long war? We shall serve. The processed serfs answered as one. Our voices blended in eerie unison, compelled by the ritual already in motion. Abaddon drew a black blade across his palm. Black blood welled from the wound. Blood of the Legion, he intoned, letting the vitae drip into the liquid floor. Where it fell, the surface hissed and steamed, spreading runes like frost across glass. Flesh of the Legion, Abaddon continued, tearing a strip of his own skin and casting it into the spreading design. It dissolved instantly, the patterns growing more intricate. Then he raised Draknion from the floor, the blade trailing tendrils of living darkness. He pressed its point against his chest, just enough to draw blood, which streamed down the blade, defying gravity as it moved with purpose. With blood, flesh, and soul, I bind you to the Black Legion, Abaddon declared. Not as slaves, but as weapons. Not as servants, but as instruments of vengeance. The chains of loyalty to dead masters are broken. Now you forge new chains, of your own choosing. Chains that bind you to our purpose. The liquid beneath us began to rise. Tendrils of black substance crawled up our legs, cold as the void. Where it touched, it burned, searing intricate symbols into our flesh, marks that mirrored those spreading from Abaddon's blood. The mark of the Black Legion, Vorash whispered beside me, awe trembling in his voice. The touch of the Despoiler himself. The pain was exquisite, far beyond anything I had endured. It pierced flesh and soul alike, branding both in unison. I felt my essence being inscribed, my spirit rewritten and bound to the Black Legion on a level deeper than loyalty, deeper than faith. All around me, others screamed or fell. Some were consumed entirely, their bodies erased, sacrifices to complete the binding of those strong enough to endure. I remained standing, though every instinct screamed to fall. The augmentations of the dark mechanicum thrummed within me, channeling warp energy to sustain my body. My altered mind compartmentalized the agony, converting it into focus, into fuel. When the ritual reached its crescendo, Abaddon raised Draknion high. The blade ran red-black with the mingled blood of us all. "The Legion is reborn," he proclaimed. "No longer bound by legacy or blood, but by will and purpose. The Black Legion rises. Let the galaxy tremble." The circle of legionnaires struck their staffs in unison, sending a wave of power surging through the chamber. The liquid floor solidified instantly, its patterns locking into permanence. The same sigils now burned into our flesh and souls. Fewer than 30 serfs remained when it was done. We were transformed, our skin now veined with black markings, our eyes glowing with the same hungry light that burned in Dracnian's depths. Our souls no longer belonged entirely to us. "You are no longer serfs," Abaddon declared. "You are the bound, the instruments through which the Black Legion extends its will. You shall maintain our weapons, tend our armor, record our victories, and witness our ascension. And when we stand victorious over the corpse of the false emperor, you shall be there to record his last breath." He gestured to the legionnaires who had conducted the ritual. "Take them to their duties. The preparations for our first campaign begin now." We were led from the ritual chamber, our new status evident in the way the legionnaires regarded us. Not with respect, but with recognition. We had purpose now. Value. We were not expendable slaves, but living extensions of Abaddon's will. I was assigned to the forges, my augmented hands ideal for maintaining the war gear of gods. The forges of the vengeful spirit were vast labyrinths of flame and machine, merging dark mechanicum technology with ancient metallurgy. Here, the armor and weapons of the Black Legion were reforged, repainted, and reborn. My first task: the re-armoring of warriors who had once served my old master. Their pale green and white heraldry was being systematically erased, replaced with the midnight black and burning gold of the Black Legion. I worked beside other bound, our movements synchronized by the invisible thread that linked us through the despoiler's will. Time lost all meaning in the eye of terror. What felt like weeks may have been days, or centuries. The forge never cooled. The work never ceased. The Black Legion was preparing for war. Occasionally, I saw my former master, now Brother Saris of the Black Legion. He no longer acknowledged me. Whatever connection we'd once shared had been severed, dissolved in the black fire of rebirth. That should have troubled me, but the extraction had stripped away sentiment. One cycle, marked only by a change in task rather than time. I was summoned from the forges. A Black Legionnaire entered, his armor marked with the runes of Ezekarian, the inner circle of Abaddon himself. "You," he said, pointing at me with a clawed gauntlet etched in sorceress symbols. "Garen Vale, the despoiler requires your service." I set aside the plasma incinerator I had been calibrating and followed without hesitation. The binding ensured obedience, but even without it, curiosity would have compelled me. I was led through the deepest halls of the vengeful spirit, places where reality grew thin, where shadows whispered and walls seemed to breathe. The ship no longer felt like a vessel, but a living entity, a god machine of flesh and iron. Finally, we reached a sealed gate guarded by 2 Terminators in armor so massive it seemed impossible they could move. Their helms were shaped like demonic visages, horns and fangs that shifted when viewed directly. Their halberds crackled with warp energy, leaving afterimages in the air. "The bound one as requested," my escort said. The Terminators studied me with glowing red optics, then stepped aside in perfect unison. The gate opened, revealing a chamber that defied logic. It was a strategium, but more alive than mechanical. A vast table dominated the center, its surface displaying hololithic projections of star systems and fleet movements. Yet the machinery pulsed with veins and organic tissue. The walls breathed, eyes forming and dissolving within their surfaces. Around the table stood figures of immense power, captains of the Black Legion, warlords who had waged the long war for 10,000 years, sorcerers whose armor was covered in runes that twisted sanity, warriors warped by the gifts or curses of the chaos gods themselves. At the head of the table stood Abaddon the Despoiler, fully armored, his Terminator plate making him a giant even among Astartes. Draknion hung at his side, its malevolence a tangible pressure upon the soul. "The bound one arrives," Abaddon said, his voice effortlessly silencing his captains. "Approach, Garen Vale." I stepped forward, bowing my head as protocol demanded. Though we were no longer mere serfs, the bound still showed reverence to the Despoiler. "You have served the Legion since Terra," Abaddon stated, not as a question, but as fact. "Yes, Lord," I replied. "You witnessed the glory of the Great Crusade, the treachery of the Emperor, the fall of the War Master." "Yes, Lord," I repeated. "And yet your memories have been extracted, your chains to the past broken. Tell me, what remains in their place?" It was a real question. I searched my reconstructed mind. The memories were hollowed out, repainted in new colors. "Purpose, Lord," I said at last. "The memories remain, but their meaning has changed. I see now the truth, that the Emperor was never divine, only powerful, that Horus was a tool who outlived his purpose, that the true path lies with the Black Legion, with you." Abaddon studied me in silence, his burning eyes cutting through flesh and soul alike. Whatever he sought, he seemed to find it. "The bound speak truth," he said finally, turning to his captains. "Even when that truth is manufactured. This one shall serve as the Legion's memory, a witness to our ascension, who has also seen our lowest point. Through his eyes, the galaxy shall see the inevitability of our victory." He turned his attention back to me. "You shall record our campaigns, every victory, every setback, every step on the path to terror. Not as propaganda, but as testament. The truth of the Black Legion, written by one who remembers what came before." I bowed deeper. "I am honored, Lord." "Honor is a concept for loyalists," Abaddon dismissed coldly. "You serve because you have no choice, because your soul is bound to mine as surely as your flesh is bound to the Legion. But in that service, you shall find the freedom that was promised, freedom from the lies of the past." He gestured toward one of the sorcerers, a figure whose armor was adorned with scrolls of human skin covered in microscopic script. "Karnas shall provide you with the tools needed for your task. When the Terminum Crusade begins, you will accompany my command group. You will witness. You will record. You will ensure that the rebirth of the Black Legion is remembered for all time." With that, I was dismissed from the Despoiler's presence. The sorcerer Karnas led me from the Strategium to his private chambers aboard the Vengeful Spirit. Unlike the organic-mechanical hybrid nature of much of the vessel, Karnas's domain was almost clinical in its precision. Shelves of tomes and scrolls filled the space, each sealed behind stasis fields that shimmered with protective energy. "The Despoiler sees potential in you," Karnas said, his voice distorted through his Vox grill. "Few of the bound are granted such distinction." "I have served faithfully for millennia," I replied. "Faithfulness is not the quality he values," Karnas countered. "It is your capacity for reinterpretation. You do not merely accept the new truth we've placed within you. You synthesize it with the fragments that remain, creating a narrative that serves our purpose better than pure indoctrination ever could. He moved to a sealed cabinet, placing his gauntleted hand upon a panel that scanned him with a beam of sickly green light. The cabinet opened, revealing relics that radiated power even to my dulled senses. "These shall be your tools," Karnas said, removing the items one by one. First was a book bound in what appeared to be ceramite, its cover unmarked except for the 8-pointed star of chaos undivided. "The Liber Tenebris," Karnas explained. "Its pages are made from the psychically charged skin of astropaths. What you record within will be preserved against both time and the warp." Next came a stylus, forged from an unknown material, black as the void, yet shimmering faintly with shifting iridescence. "Forged from the crystallized blood of a demon prince," Karnas said. "It will draw upon your own vitae as you write, binding your words to reality through sacrifice." Finally, he presented a collar of black metal that pulsed with inner light. "This will enhance your perception, allowing you to see events from multiple perspectives simultaneously, to record not just what happens, but the meaning behind it. The currents of fate that flow through every battle." I accepted each relic with reverence. These were no mere tools. They were extensions of the Black Legion's will, conduits through which my new purpose would be realized. "When do we depart?" I asked, securing the artifacts beneath the robes of the bound. "The muster has already begun," Karnas replied. "The warbands that have sworn allegiance to the despoiler gather even now. Soon, the Black Legion will launch its first campaign as a unified force. The Terminum Crusade will announce our rebirth to a galaxy that thought us defeated." In the days that followed, I witnessed the gathering of what would become the most feared fighting force in existence. Warbands of the former sons of Horus arrived at the Vengeful Spirit, their warriors undergoing the same transformations I had seen among my former master's retinue. Other legions joined them, word-bearers bringing their dark faith, iron warriors with their siegecraft, night lords with their mastery of terror, and even Death Guard and Thousand Sons whose loyalties had waned toward their primarchs. All underwent the rituals that bound them to the Black Legion. All surrendered their old colors for the midnight black and burning gold of Abaddon's new brotherhood. All broke the chains of the past and forged new ones, chains of choice rather than inheritance. I recorded it all within the Liber Tenebris, the stylus drawing blood from my fingertips as I wrote, the collar allowing me to perceive the significance beneath every act. I documented the forging of the Black Legion, not with emotion, for such had been excised, but with the clarity of one who remembered what came before. When the fleet finally departed the Vengeful Spirit, breaking free from the Eye of Terror, I stood upon the observation deck of the Despoiler's flagship. The collar around my neck revealed the immaterium as the ships transitioned, the warp's swirling madness reaching out to caress the vessels that dared traverse it. Beside me stood Brother Saras, once my master, now simply another warrior of the Black Legion. "Does anything remain of who you were?" he asked quietly, his gaze fixed upon the warp. The question surprised me. Among the Black Legion, the past was deliberately forgotten. "Fragments," I admitted, "impressions rather than true memories, the knowledge of events without the emotion." "Good," Sarus said. "That is as it should be. I remember nothing of who I was, only flashes, like scenes from another man's life. It is better this way. And yet you asked," I noted. "Some part of you still seeks connection to what came before." "Not connection," Sarus replied, turning to me, his lenses glowing with inner fire. "Confirmation. assurance that the chains are truly broken, that when we face the Imperium, there will be no hesitation, no lingering sentiment for what we once served. There will be none, I assured him. The binding ritual saw to that. We serve the Black Legion now, the Long War, the Despoiler. Cyrus nodded once, turning back to the viewport. Record that, chronicler. Record that when the moment came, we did not look back. We embraced the black. And so I did, adding his words to the growing testament within the Liber Tenebris. A testament of a legion reborn not through gene seed or Primarch, but through will and purpose. A legion freed from the failures of the past, unified in vengeance against the Imperium of man. The Terminum Crusade was to be the Black Legion's declaration to the galaxy, a series of devastating raids against Imperial worlds on the fringes of Segmentum Obscurus. Worlds that had known peace for millennia, their defenses grown soft. We emerged from the warp into the Terminum system, a cluster of 7 inhabited worlds orbiting a dying star. The defenses were pitiful. The PDF forces wielded outdated arms, their orbital stations manned by reservists, perfect prey for a legion seeking to carve its legend anew. The Black Legion struck without warning or mercy. Drop pods and assault craft descended before the Imperium could raise an alarm. Terminators teleported into command centers, decapitating leadership. Sorcerers conjured warp storms that sealed the system from aid. I accompanied the command squad, led by Karnas, aboard a gunship hovering over Terminum Prime. From above, I watched the city drown in blood. Buildings crumbled beneath bombardment. Civilians were driven into vast processing centers. The governor's palace became a temple of the dark gods, its spires crowned with the flayed corpses of its former rulers. Through it all, I recorded, the stylus drawing my blood, the collar revealing the unseen forces guiding our conquest. I documented the rise of the Black Legion, their unity forged through purpose and terror alike. By the third day, Terminum Prime had fallen. The 8-pointed star flew from every tower. The people were dead or enslaved. The strong were molded into new cults to serve the Legion's mortal auxiliaries. Then, Abaddon himself descended. Until then, the Despoiler had commanded from orbit. Now, with victory secured, he came to claim his world. We knelt as his Thunderhawk landed before the governor's palace. Abaddon emerged, a giant even among giants, his Terminator armor scarred and radiant with ruinous power. Dracnion hung in his grip, the Daemon blade drinking in the suffering that suffused the world. "Rise, warriors of the Black Legion," Abaddon commanded. "Rise and witness the first fruit of our rebirth." They rose, proud, blood-stained, triumphant. They had broken the chains of the past and forged new ones, chains of victory, not defeat. Abaddon ascended the temple steps and turned to address his sons. My collar pulsed, capturing every word and gesture for the chronicle. "Let this world serve as testament," he thundered, his voice carrying across the ruined city. "Testament that the long war continues, that the Imperium's sins are not forgotten, that vengeance comes for the false emperor, one world at a time." He raised Dracnion, its infernal light casting his shadow over all assembled. The sons of Horus died with the War Master. The Luna Wolves died on Istvan. But the Black Legion is born here, in fire and blood. Born of choice, not gene seed. Born of purpose, not Primarch. We are the heirs of hatred, the inheritors of the long war, and we shall not be denied our vengeance. The Legion roared as one. Their cry shook the ruins. The cultists fell prostrate, overcome by devotion to their dark messiah. And I recorded it all. my blood staining the pages of the Liber Tenebris as the stylus raced across them. When the speech ended, Abaddon descended among his warriors, honoring them with his presence. At last, he stood before me, the chronicler. The Liber lay open in my hands, its pages filled with the testimony of the Black Legion's rebirth. "Show me, chronicler," he commanded. I presented the book, holding it open for his inspection. Abaddon studied the pages, his burning gaze scanning the words I had recorded. A satisfied smile crossed his face, visible beneath the top knot of black hair. "You have captured it well," he said. "Not merely the events, but their meaning, the birth of a legion without chains." "The binding ritual ensures accuracy, Lord," I replied. "I see with eyes unclouded by sentiment or bias." "No," Abaddon corrected. "Not unclouded, merely clouded differently. The bias of the Black Legion rather than the bias of the past. There is no true objectivity, chronicler, only perspective. And your perspective now serves the long war." He reached out with his right hand, the one not replaced by the talon of Horus, and touched the page I had been writing. His armored finger came away stained with my blood. He pressed it to his own forehead, leaving a crimson mark between his eyes. "Blood binds us," he said. "Not the blood of gene seed or Primarch, the blood we shed, the blood we spill, the blood we offer to the long war. Remember that, chronicler. Record it for all who follow." "I shall, Lord," I promised, adding his words to the chronicle even as he spoke them. Abaddon nodded once, then turned to Karnas, who had approached during our exchange. "Prepare the rituals. This world shall be our first offering, a declaration of intent that even the blind seers of Terra cannot ignore." Karnas bowed deeply. "It shall be done, Despoiler. The coordinates are already being inscribed, the sacrifices prepared." I did not understand their meaning then, but I would soon witness the true purpose of the Terminum Crusade. Not merely conquest or plunder, but something far more significant. A statement written in the language of atrocity that the Imperium could not fail to comprehend. In the days that followed, the Black Legion's hold on the Terminum system was consolidated. Resistance was crushed with methodical efficiency. The population was processed into slaves, or sacrificed in rituals that stained the skies with blood and souls. Beneath it all, a greater working took shape. Karnas and his fellow sorcerers orchestrated vast symbols across each conquered world. Trenches filled with promethium and corpses formed patterns visible from orbit. 8-pointed stars and other esoteric shapes, whose meaning escaped even my enhanced perception. I recorded everything, my understanding growing as the ritual's pattern revealed itself. This was to be a sacrifice on a planetary scale, 7 worlds devoted to the ruinous powers. Their deaths a beacon that would announce the birth of the Black Legion to powers both mortal and divine. On the final day, I stood once more at Abaddon's side as he overlooked the primary ritual site from the bridge of the Vengeful Spirit. The great vessel hung in low orbit over Terminum Prime, its shadow casting the already blighted world into deeper darkness. "Witness, chronicler," Abaddon commanded. "Witness and record the true birth of the Black Legion." At his signal, Karnas and his conclave of sorcerers began the final incantation. From orbit I saw the patterns on the world's surface ignite, burning with unnatural fire. The flames raced across continents and oceans, binding ritual sites together in one vast sigil. On the other 6 worlds of the system, similar conflagrations erupted, pinpricks of malevolent light visible even at this distance. The bridge of the Vengeful Spirit darkened as power was drained from its systems to fuel the ritual. Abaddon stood unflinching, Dracnian drawn, the demon sword drinking in the roiling energies. Around him, the Black Legionnaires knelt in silent supplication, their armor resonating with the storm of power. Then came the culmination. Karnas raised his staff, glowing with dangerous energies that threatened to consume him, and brought it down with terrible finality. A psychic shockwave tore through the immaterium, something even I, with my limited senses, could feel. The surface of Terminum Prime ruptured. Fissures opened across the planet, revealing not magma, but raw warp essence boiling upward, devouring all it touched. The other worlds of the system suffered unique agonies, each claimed by a different ruinous power. In less than an hour, 7 inhabited worlds were transformed into demon worlds. The Terminum system ceased to exist as part of real space, becoming instead an extension of the Eye of Terror, a wound in reality that would never heal. "It is done," Abaddon declared, sheathing Dracnian. "The chains of the past are broken. The Black Legion is born." He turned to me, his gaze burning through my soul. "Record it thus, chronicler. On this day, by the sacrifice of 7 worlds, the Black Legion declared its independence from the shadow of the War Master. No longer sons of a fallen demigod, but masters of our own fate. The long war enters a new phase, and the false emperor shall tremble at our coming." I wrote his words in the Liber Tenebris, the blood from my fingers soaking the pages without obscuring the text. The collar around my neck seared against my skin, channeling visions beyond mortal comprehension into words I could inscribe. As the fleet departed, and the newly formed demon worlds bled into the immaterium, I stood again on the observation deck. Through the collar, I saw ripples across the warp, the attention of powers ancient and terrible now fixed upon the Black Legion. Brother Cyrus joined me, his armor marked with new honors from the campaign. "Do you understand now?" he asked. "Why the past had to die? Why memory is the enemy of rebirth?" I considered his words. Through my altered perspective, I finally saw the truth. "Yes," I answered. "The Luna Wolves could never have done this. The sons of Horus would have been paralyzed by the shadow of their Primarch. Only by breaking those chains could the Black Legion be born." "And your chains, chronicler? Are they broken?" Cyrus pressed. "You who were chosen to remember what the rest of us forgot." It was a sharp question. I was the Legion's memory, yet memory itself was the enemy of rebirth. I was bound to record the past, while the Legion sought to escape it. "My chains are transformed," I said finally. "Not broken, but repurposed. I remember so that others need not. I carry the burden of the past so that the Legion may focus solely on vengeance." Cyrus nodded, satisfied. "Then record this truth as well. We are free now. Free as no other Legion can claim. Free of primogenitors and gene fathers. Free of legacy and expectation. Our only bonds are those we have chosen. Our only purpose, the one we define ourselves." "Freedom through chosen bondage," I murmured, the phrase writing itself into the Liber Tenebris. "Precisely," Cyrus said. "That is the paradox at the heart of the Black Legion. We surrendered everything, even our past, even our identities. And in that surrender, we found liberty the slaves of the Corpse Emperor can never know." As the vengeful spirit returned to the warp, carrying the victorious Legion to its next conquest, I reflected on Cyrus's words. There was truth in them, from a certain perspective. The perspective forced upon me by ritual and warpcraft. The perspective of one who had surrendered all that defined him in exchange for purpose. I touched the collar at my neck, feeling its unnatural pulse. Another paradox. Another chain disguised as freedom. What remains of Garen Vale, I sometimes wonder in fleeting moments, when the collar's grip weakens. The loyal serf who polished armor for 9 millennia, waiting for a purpose that never came. Does he still exist? Or is he forever gone, consumed by the rites that bound me to the Black Legion? Perhaps it does not matter. Identity is a chain. Memory is a weakness. The only truth that matters is the long war, and my duty to record it. And yet, as I inscribe these words, I cannot ignore that the act of chronicling itself creates another chain, tethering the Legion to the very past it claims to abandon. Perhaps that is my true role, not merely to preserve, but to ensure that in its rush to shed the past, the Legion does not forget the foundation of its hatred. Freedom in the Black Legion means the surrender of all humanity. My own was long ago sacrificed, broken upon Abaddon's will. But in that sacrifice, I have seen millennia unfold. I have witnessed the death of one legion and the birth of another. I have seen gods cast down and warriors rise as new masters. I have recorded vengeance reborn as eternal crusade. This is what it means to be forged into the Black Legion, to be unmade and remade, to surrender everything for a greater cause, to break chains, only to forge new ones of your own choosing. I am Garen Vale, once a serf of the Luna Wolves, now chronicler of the Black Legion. The marks upon my flesh are not scars, but signatures, signatures of those who broke me, remade me, and gave me purpose when all seemed lost. And as the Black Legion wages its long war against the Imperium of man, I shall be there, witnessing, recording, so that when we stand victorious over the Corpse Emperor, history will know the truth of our rebirth, the truth of our vengeance, the truth of our freedom. This is the testament of Garen Vale, chronicler of the Black Legion. Let all who read understand the price of liberty, the surrender of self, the breaking of chains, the embrace of the Black.